Start. Doug, do you want to do a roll call?
Go ahead and open the meeting. Let's see. Go ahead and call the meeting to order. And then I can take roll call. So.
Okay. Meeting is called to order.
Okay. Can I get, we'll do roll call. Can I get Commissioner Conroy?
Here.
Commissioner Jess?
Yes, here.
Commissioner Marin?
Here.
Commissioner Johnson?
Here.
Chair Woodham?
Here.
And again, Commissioner Samples will be late and Commissioner Solomon is absent tonight.
Okay. Let's begin with a salute to the flag, and I'll lead it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first item is to approve the order of agenda. You see the order of agenda that was sent to us. Do I have a motion to approve?
Yes. Second. I approve. Yeah.
And a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Aye. Okay, that's approved. Blue folder items. Jennifer, do we have any blue folder items?
We do.
Okay. No blue folder. Go to the consent calendar. Business items, except those formally noticed for public hearing or discussion, are assigned to the consent calendar. The commission members may request that any consent calendar item be removed, dismissed, or acted upon separately. Items removed from the consent calendar will be taken up under the excluded consent calendar. We have one item, item F1, the approval of affidavit for posting. Before we go into, Jennifer, a question. The minutes weren't attached and we haven't seen the minutes for October 14th. Are those coming, or what's the status of the minutes?
Yeah, Doug can speak more to that. So we've just got an outside person doing the minutes. So it's just been a little bit challenging, a little clunky.
Yes, we do have a new person under contract with the city. She's just been assigned your commission, and she's new. So we've been in contact with her, and she's just catching up. So she is saying that she will have the minutes for the October meeting, December meeting, and she should have for this meeting as well at our next meeting in February.
Okay. Okay, good. Any questions from commissioners on that? If not,
I have a question.
Yes.
Just regarding the new person taking minutes, what's their name and how recently were they hired? You said they were new. They were a new hire, not new to taking minutes, correct?
Yeah, they're not city employees. She's not a city employee. Okay. And I don't know the process, how she was hired, but she's under contract with the city. I don't know her exact date of hire or when her contract went into effect. I do not know.
Do you know the rough date? I'm just curious how much catch-up work she has to do.
She said that she'll be able to provide meeting minutes for the October meeting as well as December.
By our next meeting.
And this meeting as well.
Yes.
And those will all be, she thinks she'll be able to have all those by our next meeting. Did I hear you correctly?
Correct.
All right, thank you. That's all.
Okay. Do we have a motion to accept the consent calendar?
So moved.
All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Public participation on non-agenda items. This section is intended to provide members of the public with the opportunity to comment on any subject that does not appear on this agenda for action. This section is limited to 30 minutes. Each speaker will be afforded 3 minutes to address the commission. Each speaker will be permitted to speak only once. Do we have any public participation? Any public comments?
We do have one e-comment. Jennifer, do we have anybody calling in? Can you see on your side?
We do not.
Okay. So I do have one public comment I'll read. This comes from Mark Nelson. His comment, City Finance Director Jennifer Paul is a Beach City Health District Board approved committee member. BCHD will have a nearly 500 million commercial development project pending at the City of Redondo Beach in the next month or so. Ms. Paul is conflicted and cannot participate in any analysis, decisions, or briefings regarding BCHD in any matter at the City of Redondo Beach. The city is further disadvantaging surrounding residents by failing to dismiss Chair Byro from the GPAC, as Mr. Byro is the primary 300,000 no bid contract advocate for BCHD at the city. And Mr. Byro, like Ms. Paul, is a sitting BCHD board approved committee member. Over 1,200 surrounding residents oppose the 100 plus foot tall, 800,000 square foot Staples Center size expansion of BCHD. This is very likely the largest commercial development project in Redondo Beach and is approximately 3 times the height and twice the square feet of the voted rejected Center Cal Mall by the Sea project. However, the BCHD is completely landlocked by residential 30-foot height neighborhoods. And that's the only comment for tonight.
Okay. Okay. Then let's move on to, again, no e-comments and emails received from the public, right, Jennifer? Other than the one we just read.
Correct, just that one.
No items continued from the previous agenda.
Correct.
So we move into section J, items for discussion. This is new business. And J1 is the Moss Adams report.
Yes, so this is actually really an update also on where we're at as far as the fraud, waste, and abuse program update. And I have 2 excellent representatives from Moss Adams that I meet with on a monthly basis. We have Colleen and Tammy, and they're just going to present, where we are right now. That's why we've also gotten Alesh here as well from the treasurer's office, because this also has to do with revenues. And I'm excited for them to share their progress with you all.
Thanks, Jennifer. Good evening, everyone. Colleen Rosillas. I'm a partner with Moss Adams. I lead the performance projects for internal audit for the city. Just a little bit of context. This fiscal year for the city, we've got 4 projects, and we are underway on 2 of them, fraud, waste, and abuse, and the internal service fund review. So I'm going to let Tammy take it away and give you an overview of the fraud, waste, and abuse program.
Great. Thank you, Colleen. My name is Tammy Lauren. I'm a manager with Moss Adams, and I'll be helping support the fraud, waste, and abuse program implementation with the city. So today what I'll do is I'll just sort of cover high level what we're going to be doing as part of that program, and we can take any questions that the commission has. So there's really 4 different elements to helping the city set up and administer this fraud, waste, and abuse program. The first is establishing the policy foundation for the program. The second is establishing the reporting mechanism for the program. Training for employees, which is critical to the program's success, and then ongoing monitoring and reporting. So first and foremost, in order to get a program like this set up, we need to establish the foundation for the fraud, waste, and abuse program, which includes policies that define fraud, waste, abuse, what is constituted within each one of those. What are some examples of things that would fall under one or multiple of those categories? We also want to establish the roles and responsibilities for the program. So everyone has a role to play in the program's success. That includes us as your internal auditor, the city manager, the city attorney's office, potentially the police department, certainly Jennifer, if there's any complaints that would relate to finance. And so making sure that we all have a very good understanding of what everyone's role is also critical for this program. And most importantly, one of our next steps in working with the city is to make sure that we have a whistleblower policy in place to make sure that employees feel comfortable and safe reporting potential allegations or concerns that they may see or witness. So the next phase is establishing a hotline that will serve as a reporting mechanism for employees or residents that, again, see or hear or have the perception that something is going awry. It's not intended to replace existing reporting mechanisms. Employees are still absolutely welcome to report concerns up to their supervisor if they're more comfortable with that. This is really intended to just be another mechanism for someone that may not feel comfortable going to their supervisor with that information because perhaps the person that they are saying, well, there was this thing that happened. I'm not really sure what I saw, but it didn't look good. Maybe the supervisor has a relationship with that person. And so again, we just want to be able to provide a safe place for employees or residents to report concerns that they experience. So for that, the city will be contracting with a third-party vendor that will receive reports 24/7 in any format that the complainant is most comfortable providing reports. There's a hotline, there's voicemail, there's email, there's snail mail. I would love to get the statistics on how many pieces of snail mail each of these vendors get, but I am not privy to that information. And then after receiving a complaint, then the vendor will determine the appropriate party at the city that should be receiving that complaint and send it off in their direction, while also including internal audit for relevant matters as well, because it helps us potentially identify trends and risks that we can help address through our programming. And before I move off of the hotline, I want to go on a little bit of a soapbox about how great this tool really is. So the most recent report from the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners said that 43% of all occupational frauds were detected through a hotline. When you have a fraud awareness training in addition, that goes up to 56%. So that is over half of all occupational frauds are detected through a hotline. And they're extremely inexpensive to operate. And so they're really a best practice tool to make sure that if something is going to go wrong, that we have a good place to be able to report that. So moving off of my soapbox now, let's talk about training, which is another absolutely critical component to this program's success. So we need to educate employees on what fraud is, what waste is, what abuse is, what are the ways that we should be reporting these different types of complaints. The hotline is not intended to be a place for HR grievances, even though inevitably that will be a place for HR grievances to funnel through and then they'll just go over to HR. But when we're thinking about training, it's really a matter of providing employees with the information that they need to understand what some of the red flags are, what they should do if they identify a red flag, and then also making sure that there's complete transparency about the different reporting mechanisms that are available, and that we also have good transparency about how complaints are triaged, managed, and investigated to really support that employee buy-in. And we'll be working with the city at least on developing the initial training and rolling that out to employees. We likely will do a manager level and above training that would be live, and then a pre-recorded webinar for frontline staff. And then the last element of the fraud, waste, and abuse program really falls under the role of and purview of your city council to be reviewing that program, monitoring it, making sure that it's addressing the objectives that it's intended to. So usually we'll see cities provide an annual update to the city council that has statistics on how many complaints were received, where were they coming in from, what was the nature of those complaints at a very high level, sort of categories, and then what was ultimately the outcome of the different complaints that came in. So that's a very high level overview of the fraud, waste, and abuse program implementation. Again, our next steps are to work with the city on the whistleblower policy. The city has to get that third-party contract in place, and then we'll be helping coordinate the training.
Tammy, I have one question.
Sure.
Have you implemented this plan in any other city of the size of Redondo Beach? And if you did, what were the results in the first year or the first 2 or 3 years?
Absolutely. We have these all over in many of our internal audit clients, and I'll turn to Colleen to talk about the details.
Sure. So we implement these programs and also operate the hotlines for most of our internal audit clients. So City of Stockton, obviously bigger than you, Santa Monica, another example, we help them to set up their hotline. HR runs their hotline, but we help to triage that. Many other cities and counties and other entities for which we are the internal auditor. So the results vary. There are many complaints that are not investigated, do not rise to the level of being investigated. Like Tammy mentioned, we get a lot of personnel matters that are just forwarded to HR. There are things when a number is out there that are kind of community matters or items that end up not being related to the city. And so we triage those and address those. They might be another agency or something else. Then there are matters that need to be dealt with either through the city attorney's office, or we work with the police department to determine how we want to investigate those. When those come up, we enter into a separate engagement with the city to determine how we want to proceed and investigate accordingly. Those tend to be pretty rare, but they do come up on occasion. The very first hotline that we ever operated for a client, the very first call was an ethics complaint that was valid against an elected official. And we did have to investigate that, so that those do happen. And we do pursue those all the way that we need to, and until they need to be handed over to law enforcement if necessary.
So how much money did they recover or save?
So that depends on the nature of what occurs. We certainly, I'm not going to divulge, any sort of specific instances. We hope that there is not anyone committing fraud currently on staff at the city. But when we put these in place, we can help to create the structures to know that there are controls and there are detective controls in place and preventive controls in place, so folks know what to look out for, as well as to create a greater culture of accountability and that folks are looking out for their colleagues as well.
Has any of these cities also provided some sort of a reward for those who step forward as a whistleblower and then their complaint or their claim is justified and that results in some savings for the government? Do they give the whistleblower some percentage of it, like our federal government does?
Some organizations do. The hotlines do allow you to report anonymously, so it depends on how the individual chooses to report, whether you're able to do that.
Can you provide us with an idea of the cost that the city is incurring for all the waste, fraud, and abuse programs? Following on Vijay's comments, a cost-benefit analysis, a hypothetical cost-benefit analysis might be in order. And obviously you can't some of the things they could uncover are going to be quite expensive, could be quite expensive for the city. But just general comments on the cost and the kinds of things you've uncovered in the past might be helpful.
Sure. So the cost to operate the hotline is quite inexpensive. We have another client that's just implementing a hotline right now. They went out to bid. There are two main providers. They're a city of about 180,000 and around, I think about 2,000 employees. And they, the cost for their hotline was less than $2,000 a year to operate that hotline. And the cost for us in our budget this year to provide the program development and training is $15,000. So it's a relatively low cost to get this set up and an extremely low cost to continue to operate the hotline over time. And we certainly have seen, frauds uncovered, the cost of, anything from a low cost of, a couple of hundred or a couple of $1,000 all the way to, we've seen large frauds and embezzlements of millions of dollars uncovered through hotline reports, like Tammy was saying earlier.
So for how many years have you been promoting this plan from your company?
Sure. So we've been providing this service for more than 10 years.
10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see the results from some of the cities kind of starting at a low point and then taking off once people feel a little more comfortable with it?
That's a good question. We tend to get maybe a little bit of a bubble in the beginning because we get the training and we get folks being aware of it. And also there is a little bit of public interest in what might happen when you do call the hotline. And then it tends to wane a little bit. We want to provide consistent training to our employees, regular refresher training. So folks always know we want the number posted and it available. And then it's relatively consistent over time. And we want to just make sure that we're always letting folks know that it is available as an option and that they know exactly what to be aware of to report.
Further questions?
Does the system typically pay for itself with recoveries?
I would say yes. I think it pays for itself both in recovery and also in terms of you're creating, again, that culture of greater accountability. You're creating a culture of folks, behaving in a way, knowing that we have this in place, and that creates an improved sort of ethical behavior among your staff, which is, you can't necessarily quantify that, but it is definitely creates greater safety and less risk just in kind of day-to-day operations.
Sure, and tangibly, there's certainly a large value to it, but you're saying fiscally, it also, in general, covers its own costs, right?
If you do, I don't know, Tammy, you unmuted yourself. What did you want to say?
So one of the things, I'm a certified fraud examiner. One of the things that we get beat into our brains throughout our training is that the best prevention is the perception of detection. So if we combine the fraud awareness training with the mere presence of a hotline, we may be preventing frauds from occurring. And that's difficult to quantify. Certainly if something will be reported, it's very likely to cover the cost of the program. But again, it's more important if we're thinking about these programs to have this reporting mechanism, but to also say we're paying attention to specific anti-fraud controls, and we know what to look for, and we know what to do if we see something that's suspicious. And that alone can deter some behavior and protect the city, if that's helpful. It's a different way to think about cost benefit.
No, that makes total sense. Okay, so I'm sure all your investigations are private until the time that if something needs to be turned over to law enforcement, right?
Yes, that's true. And what we typically do is we provide a quarterly report to the committee or to city council with the number of calls that came in, the nature of the calls, very high level. These are the number that were human resources. These are the number that were unrelated. These are the number that we're further investigating because we do not want to publicize what's happening. We don't want to let anyone know that they are potentially under investigation.
And the group functions completely independently, right? There's nobody at the either city staff or elected officials that could tell you like, oh, that's fine, or don't worry about that one or something like that.
That's correct. Yes, we make that judgment.
All right. Thank you. That's all I had.
This reporting is limited to city employees only, not to the general public or contractors who are working with the city. If they notice some abuse or fraud, how do they report this? Or they're not supposed to or not allowed to?
The hotline will be available to residents as well. And that's important because you could have a resident that went in and paid in cash for their children's parks reservation. And they're like, wait, I didn't get a receipt. What happened with that? And so it is important to make sure that we have that coverage as well. And so those hotlines are available for residents or community members or vendors.
Then how do you train and promote this to all the city residents?
I actually don't know. Colleen, do you have thoughts there?
Yeah, so you're going to want to post it in public places where you have other sort of city news posted, have it posted on the website and available so that folks know what it's for. And we do want to have specific language around what the purpose is. So occasionally we might get, a phone call that's not relevant, like my credit card was stolen, right? And there's not much we can do about that when that happens. But weeding through that, we also may get some relevant calls from members of the public, and that's why it's available.
Okay. Further questions? Further parts of the presentation? By the way, Doug, in case you didn't notice, Councilman Samples signed in just about 5 minutes ago.
Yes, thank you. I was going to mention that after the presentation that Commissioner Samples is in attendance. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry to be late.
Okay. Colleen or Tammy, further parts of the presentation, or are you finished?
We are done.
If you're finished with questions, we're done with our presentation.
Okay, just go around one more time. Any further questions of these two folks? If not, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both very much.
Okay, do we need a motion to receive and file this report, or just note that they presented? I'm not sure what we need to do with this. I don't think we need to do anything else.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
I don't know if I missed anything in the past meeting I was not at. Did we get a change in our service team for Moss Adams?
I'm sorry, the service team from
Moss Adams. I haven't met the two fantastic individuals before.
I can answer that question. Actually, I have been working with the city since the original engagement. I worked on the original risk assessment. Tammy also has been working with the city for quite some time. We just have a service team that serves you. And so tonight we showed up for this meeting, but Mark Starenka, Haley Garcia, we have a couple of other folks who do also appear, and we just, I volunteered to appear tonight when we met with Jennifer last week.
Well, thank you. It's good to meet the rest, part of the rest of the team.
Okay. Okay, I think that's it for this part of the meeting. Thank you very much. Moving on to J2, review of the city's budget calendar. Jennifer?
Excuse me, before we move on, I need to comment that there are no public comments on this item.
Okay, thanks.
And we don't need a motion to receive and file?
Yeah, I think you do.
Yeah.
Okay. Do I have a motion to receive and file?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries to receive and file. A report from Moss Adams. Moving on to J2, review of the city's 2022 budget calendar. Turn it over to Jennifer Paul.
Okay, I presented this at City Council Tuesday and I started reading it and forgot to share my screen. So I learned I'm going to share my screen now. So now we do have an internal proposed calendar. Not all of those dates for the Budget and Finance Commission are on this particular calendar because this is our external facing calendar. And so wait, do you still see this? No, okay.
Being your tax estimate.
There we go. Okay, now you can see it, right?
Right. Yep.
I want to see all of my millions of Excel file windows. Okay, so I'm just going to start running through it and then feel free to stop me if you have questions. I just wanted to show you kind of what we're up to as far as the budget calendar and how we have several new things this year.
Jennifer, can you please make it a little wider?
Yes. Is that better?
Yeah,
One more click will do it.
Oh,
That's
like Goldilocks. There we go.
I clicked too far.
That's
Yeah,
as big as it
okay.
goes.
no, this is much better.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, good. Okay, so on Tuesday, January 11th, we did have this budget calendar approved at the City Council meeting. Now, 2 meetings coming up in a couple of weeks are new this year. So we have January 25th and January 27th. And those will actually be special City Council meetings because January 25th is the 5th Tuesday of the month and the 27th is a Thursday. These are strategic planning sessions and they'll be held via Zoom. And so Mike Wodzansky is heading these. So I'm not sure of the exact details, but I do know for myself, I'm tasked with just talking a little bit about what my department has been up to for the past year. And so all departments will be doing that. And so it's kind of some community engagement. We're just seeking out more transparency and community involvement. And then on February 8th at the City Council meeting. And so just to go over the headers here, we've got the date, the item, and then the venue. And I'm assuming for the near future, they're all going to be Zoom, but this just states what kind of a Zoom meeting it is. And so that strategic plan consideration of approval is at a City Council meeting. Then on February 10th, we will have a mid-year, the fiscal year, this current fiscal year that we're in now, 21 to 22, mid-year budget review with this commission. So look forward to that for next month. And then on February 15th of the City Council meeting following Budget and Finance Commission meeting, we will do a mid-year review and CIP, which is Capital Improvement Project status reports to the City Council. That same night, the City Treasurer's quarterly update on investments and economic trends will be presented at the City Council.
Excuse me, Jennifer.
Sure.
Historically, the Budget and Finance Commission has been able to see that quarterly update. And I noticed looking down your calendar, we're not in that mix for any of the meetings. They go directly to council.
Correct. So on the Internal Budget and Finance Commission calendar, good question, I have that in there. So like I mentioned earlier, and maybe for next month, I'll put all of my items for Budget and Finance Commission. I definitely have the quarterly updates at Budget and Finance Commission. Those meetings are not all in here.
Okay, so I guess the question would be, are we going to be able to view the City Treasurer's quarterly update at our February 10th meeting prior to the City Council meeting?
Nilesh, are you still on to answer that? I don't know the timing of that.
Hello, yes, this is Nilesh Mehta. We are going to be presenting, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to be presenting the quarterly report on the 15th.
The council.
So historically, we have been able to see that before the City Council sees it, but that's not going to happen this time.
So the next meeting, the next Budget and Finance meeting is on the 15th.
On the 10th.
It's on the 10th.
It's on the 10th?
Yes.
Okay.
And this goes to council on the 15th.
Okay, yeah. So we will be presenting the quarterly report on the 10th. I apologize. I thought that the 15th was the budget and finance meeting, but yes.
Sorry for the confusion. I just wanted to make sure that we're staying in sync like we have been in the past. Thank you.
Yes, yeah. Everything as is going to happen as has been happening in the past. Correct. Sorry for the confusion.
Okay, thanks.
Jennifer,
Yes.
will we also get the CIP status report presented on our meeting of the 10th before it goes to council?
I don't, that's a good question. I can look into that. So I was initially modeling this after last year's and I did not see that there. I do see a joint CIP and budget and finance presentation in April. So if that is something,
It seems that we should get the opportunity to see it before it goes to council in case we have some input for them.
I mean, I don't know. I can check with our CIP people about that.
So Jennifer, if it helps, I think if I recall last year and prior years, the status report is different from what we do in the joint session.
Okay. That's a great question. Then I will go ahead and check on that. I will check on that. And then the first thing, so it's funny too, because I was updating our Budget and Finance Commission meeting calendar and all the time, and I was plopping in the quarterly treasurer reports. And I was curious too about the timing. So if they do go to Budget and Finance Commission before City Council, that's super helpful for me to put that in the calendar. So
we have had a few occasions where, because of extraordinary circumstances, it has not happened that way. But I think the goal has always been that it runs past Budget and Finance before it goes to council, so we have an opportunity to comment and support staff or ask questions before it goes to council.
Great. So then what I will do is, since I was wrapping that Budget and Finance Commission calendar up today anyway, I'll send those dates to Nilesh. I'll send them to you to make sure, and I'll say, here's Budget and Finance, and then commissions, the next week. We're having those almost every week. So it's going to be the following week anyway. So, or shortly thereafter. So I'll work on those two items. Any more questions before I proceed? Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, certainly. Okay. And then March 15th, we have a strategic plan monthly update at City Council meeting. And then, okay, these are in bold because they're new and exciting. We are going to have budget workshops. So the first one is March 29th. It's a community meeting. And I'm still putting together what that looks like. And then the second one I really wanted to have at this commission meeting in April and wanted your involvement. So basically we looked at other area cities, and Mike and I have been strategizing about this, and we want more transparency. And so what we'll probably do, similar to the other cities, again, within the constraints of what we're working with, and it's our first kickoff year doing this, we'll probably bring in several different departments and just present some more details about the budget process and revenues and expenditures and things like that. So rather than just saying in May, here's the budget, this is just a little bit more involvement.
Jennifer, the community meeting on March 29th, is that where we're asking for public input to the budget, or are we simply presenting to the?
I believe we're just presenting at this stage. We don't. Yeah.
Well, one of the things we had talked about in the past, and it was mentioned in a couple of prior meetings, is more public input into the budget. And I know Mike was interested in doing some of that. So I wondered if this was the first attempt at doing that.
And again, he and I don't know 100% what it looks like right now. At that stage, we've already passed mid-year and we're working on proposed. And I know we'll be receiving input, absolutely. I don't know, I can't speak to anything beyond receiving that input and strategizing and answering questions at that point. And again, we're still designing the templates and what we will actually be presenting. It's definitely designed as the initial kickoff and first stage to working a lot more collaboratively with the community. And of course, with you all on this second meeting, and that's open to the public as well.
Yeah.
And getting some good insight from you all, especially at that workshop.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, certainly. Okay, ready to move on? All right. April 19th, we have a strategic plan monthly update. April 25th, this is that joint budget and finance and public works commissions meeting. And so this is what we just talked about earlier. So it's the presentation of the CIP. So that's just the CIP portion. Then on May 16th, the fiscal 22 to 23 city manager's proposed budget and CIP will be delivered to mayor and council. That's just a charter date. We're just making sure that they have it. And then on the 17th, we're actually going to bring it to city council where it'll be received and filed. And then that same night, and again, don't worry, treasurer will have already presented to you the quarterly update, but most likely except of course, like Commissioner Samples had stated, if timing is wonky for some reason. And then on May 26th, the fiscal 22 to 23 CIP review by Planning Commission for consistency with the general plan. And so that's at a Planning Commission meeting. That same night, we have our meeting. And so we will be presenting the proposed budget presentation that night. And then on June 7th, the 22 to 23 proposed budget and CIP public hearing will be held at City Council. June 9th, we will have the proposed budget review with Budget and Finance Commission here. And then June 14th, another public hearing, proposed budget and CIP public hearing. And then that's at City Council. And then the following week at City Council, it will be the consideration of adoption. And then that same night, we'll have another strategic plan update. July 1st, the new fiscal year begins. July 19th, we have a strategic plan monthly update. And then August 16th, which is, we will have another city treasurer's quarterly update and a strategic plan monthly update that night at City Council. Throughout September, we'll have various commission meetings for commission input on the strategic plan. Then September 30th, we will publish the 22 to 23 budget document. And then September and October, we're not sure of the dates quite yet. We will have more strategic planning sessions. November 15th, the city treasurer will report their quarterly update again. And don't worry. So on November 15th of the city council meeting, I have the budget carryovers. And I have that in a budget and finance commission meeting prior to this. Because again, you all know I'm new and I was learning by the time I was getting into the weeds on that. Oh, and oh my goodness, we had Thanksgiving and Veterans Day that both were on Thursdays this year. And so we didn't have our commission meeting in November and I didn't have it in time to present to y'all in October. So I'm very excited, or I was very excited earlier today to put this budget carryovers and general fund balance reserves and designations into the Budget and Finance Commission calendar so that I will be able to work with you all on that prior to going to council. And then December 8th, we have our annual comprehensive financial report review with the audit committee. And again, we review with you all just like we did this year at this particular meeting. And then it goes to city council. And then a strategic plan monthly update, which is all on December 20th. And that is the calendar.
Looks like you did a great job on it, Jennifer.
Oh, thank you. You should see our internal calendar with everything that we do. It's a little bit more robust than this. And then I think what I'd like to do next month, I just didn't have it finalized. After I do the follow-up on, the quarterly update piece, and then answer that CIP question as far as whether or not we're proposing that here. I'll bring my proposed calendar of topics for the rest of the year with the dates for these commission meetings. I'll bring that to February.
Okay. Any questions of Jennifer for the schedule? Okay. Any public comments?
Good job, Jennifer. Really good.
Thank you.
There's no public comments, no e-comments.
Okay. I suppose we receive and file this report. Do you have a motion to receive and file Jennifer's report?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We are now down to member items and referral to staff. Let's go through the, Doug, you want to go through the commissioners and ask this question? I can do it.
Sure.
Commissioner Conroy.
Just again, good job on the calendar, and good job in general, Jennifer. Like you said, this is all the first time for you with us, and I appreciate your effort and your dedication to your position. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Jesty.
The one comment I would like to make is on this fraud, waste, and abuse program. I think we should do a periodic review of the costs and the benefit, because in private businesses, I have noticed some of these programs are launched with great fanfare, and then pretty soon people forget about it, and then becomes just a cost factor with hardly any benefit. So there should be some requirement that we do semi-annual or at least annual review of the cost and benefit.
Yeah, good point. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll follow up on the same comment. Especially once we get to the maintenance point of that, it's a very low cost if they're doing that for a handful of thousands a year. And the deterrence is so important that, many times people don't know where to go, or they're uncomfortable calling an employee or somebody within the department. But having the confidential hotline is very easy. We have one for various purposes. My company's a government contractor, and we have at least as many regulations as a municipality. And it's very fruitful. The other thing is that it will generate a lot of false leads. You've got petty rivalries. You've got people that don't understand what they're seeing, and we have a tremendous amount of, I shouldn't say tremendous, but we have a very successful program in pointing out things that really need to be looked at. And, there's a lot of talk of until we hand it over to the police. That's usually not what happens. I mean, most of these things, questionable whether it rises to the level of a crime or not. So, it's very clear maybe somebody did something wrong and there is a management corrective action that takes place, or they leave the company if it's really serious. But it is
Okay. Commissioner Marin.
Nothing from me.
Commissioner Samples.
Well, once again, I'm sorry I was late. It sounds like that initial discussion on internal controls was really valuable. I have to so much support what Commissioner Johnson just said, and I'm hoping that we use it as a tool to identify things that we can do better in order to be more transparent and manage our finances. We know that in every organization, there are times that it's really appropriate to work very close to the edge of the line. And the question is, does the line need to move if that happens all the time? And I'm hoping that that's what we find in this, and we find a better way to manage our finances and be more transparent in it. Other than that, I have nothing else. I thank you. Well, I thank you, Jennifer, so much for the calendar and for your comments, and Nilesh for your support in what we're doing. Oh, one other thing. In the quarterly discussions of our financial status, can we get any kind of a high level, and I'm not talking about something in depth, but a high level kind of mention of where we predicted our budgets and our financial situation would be as of a year and a half or 2 years ago? Are we on track? Are we doing better than we expected, or not as well? Because we tend to have these as very cut and dry. This is what's happening today. And I'd love to have someone look back and say, this is where we thought we would be, and this is how we're doing. So that's my one and only item. But thank you, everyone.
Jennifer, I only have one item. At Nils Narenheim's last community meeting, the issue of a line item visibility on the budget came up, and we've discussed this in the past. I don't know much about our budget system, the software. I'm told that Redondo, that Hermosa and Manhattan Beach have the same system, and they have the ability to look in more detail at the budget. And I know that there are a couple of city council members who want to do that. There probably are a couple who don't want to go into that much detail, but you might, if you're not familiar with that system, you might take a look at it and determine whether we have that ability and how much it would cost in the way of time to get that ability if we don't have it, because that question is certain to come up.
I can actually speak a little bit to that right now, Chairman Woodham. So timely, because I was looking at an application today that would be able to provide this. So the system that Hermosa Beach uses is called OpenGov, and we had used them last year and had a lot of massive problems. And the team here was up until the wee hours of the morning, multiple nights working on it. I started to use that this year for the adopted budget in the fall. And it was so much work because it was so clunky and just not working efficiently for us. So we ended up doing it in-house manually. So our budget document is done via spreadsheets and Word documents that are PDF'd. The line item detail that was requested by council, I actually generated and manufactured, and it's on our website as an addendum. It's not in the budget packet that's submitted to the agencies for budget awards, but it is available. It's not pretty where the user can kind of drill down on what they want. So the software package that I looked at today, that is actually an option. And so at some point, if this particular company looks good, we'll do our bidding process and similar to what we had done with Maximus, I'll bring them to this council because I would love, that transparency, that usability, and something on our end that would be, a lot more user friendly. So I appreciate that. I've definitely heard that from Niels and here before, and that makes a lot of sense. So right now we were requested line item detail for particular accounts. So on our website, I do have that posted, but it's a static document. It's not something that you can click on. So we do have that. And then I've heard mention, Manhattan Beach, which has magnificent resources. When I talk with them, we have various director meetings and I'll ask them for advice on certain things or what they do with things. And they'll say, oh, that's this wing of the finance department. So they definitely have a whole team working on things. And so I know that there's line item detail, but we'll have something that's basic as office supplies. I know Nils has used words like, well, I want, they know how many bullets they've bought. We don't have that resources to get that granular, but as granular as we are accounting for, I can produce static documents like that. But anyway, I don't want to, I do want you to know that I'm definitely mindful of that. And I appreciate that. And I'm noting that here. And I'm excited to have kind of your interest in similar functionality that I am as well. So I will most likely be bringing something like that to the commission later this year when we're ready to present, an application that would do the things that everyone's asking for, basically.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Woodham, or Chairman Woodham.
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
I wouldn't want to duplicate what Manhattan Beach does, but this has been an issue that's been going on for a few years. And if you go to the Manhattan Beach public facing website, you can look at their budget down to line item bullet, down to line item detail. And I think one of the places that Councilman Narenheim mentioned is when you go into police department, you can find out how many bullets they buy for the SWAT team versus how many they buy for patrol. So that's how detailed their budget is. I'm not sure we need to get that detailed.
Yeah, I don't think we could.
But it tells you that does happen. And quite honestly, one of the things that I said a few years ago here is I look at the budget material that we receive for review on an annual basis. And when you have a department that slices their budget down to dollars and it says it's going to cost $103,281 for something, somebody's doing a budget somewhere that's figuring out how many bullets are being bought, because otherwise it would be round numbers. Okay, I don't know how that's organized in our city. I've never been able to get to the bottom of it, but I would hope, and it sounds like you're very much on top of this, that you're going to get all the departments moving in the same direction on the same platform so we can find out where that last dollar went. Thank you.
Certainly. I'll do my best.
Okay, any further comments or questions? If not, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Aye.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Happy New Year, guys.
Happy New Year. Good to see you all.